What do you do when the hand that feeds you also bruises your face? She had never asked for much, just enough to send her daughter to school, pay the loan, maybe one day own a small shop where she wouldn't have to say, "Yes, sir," every morning. But life doesn't care about quiet dreams. It started with a slap. Not the first, maybe not the last, but something in her shifted that morning. A boiling pot, a shattered plate, a cheek that burned, and a message on her phone. Final notice: 72,500 nairas due by tomorrow. Her name was never written in gold. No one would call her strong. But they were wrong. Because that morning, as she bled quietly on the kitchen floor, she wasn't thinking of fear. She was thinking of freedom, of fire, of a reckoning. But the slap, what was it really for? Stick around, because in the next few seconds you'll learn why a single slap became the spark that lit up everything she thought she had buried. Pain, pride, power, all waiting in silence until it couldn't wait anymore. She sighed, pressing the phone to her chest, like it could somehow quiet the weight in her heart. She didn't have the money, and her daughter's education was hanging by a thread. Then a voice cut through the room like a whip. "You're deaf now. I've been calling you." She turned quickly. "It's almost ready." "Almost? You've been in this kitchen since dawn." He marched over, scooped a spoonful from the pot, tasted it, and spat it out. "You call this food?" Before she could speak, his hand flew. The slap echoed. Her body hit the table. A glass shattered, and silence followed. She didn't cry. She crouched slowly, gathered the broken pieces with bleeding fingers. No flinch, no sound, only breath. And then she looked up. Eyes are no longer soft, face no longer pleading. That was the moment she chose. She would not bow again. Not to him. She rose slowly from the floor, wiping the blood from her finger with the edge of her wrapper. Her face was calm, too calm. He had already stormed out, muttering curses, unaware that something had shifted. She didn't scream, didn't argue. She cleaned the mess, served the food, and walked back into her small room at the far end of the house. Inside, the mattress was thin, the air hot, and the phone on the table buzzed again. Another reminder, another slap, this time from reality. 72,500 nairas, no options, no help, no time. She sat down and stared at the wall, listening to the sounds in the house, the ticking clock, the distant laugh of the man who just slapped her. And then, slowly, she reached under her pillow and pulled out a small, battered notebook. In it, names, numbers, favors owed, memories not yet forgotten. Her fingers paused on one name, crossed out, but not erased. She stared at it, then looked away. Not yet. Not him. She shut the book and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow is too late. Tonight, something must change." She left the house before the sky turned blue. No food, no goodbye. Just the soft snap of the gate as it closed behind her. A scarf covered the side of her face, not for fashion, but for silence. She walked fast, not looking at anyone, heading straight to a part of town she had avoided for years. The compound looked smaller than she remembered. The walls were cracked. The air smelled of rust. She paused in front of the door and gave it 2 short knocks. He opened it with a long stare, saying nothing. His face was thinner now, his eyes colder. She held his gaze. "I didn't come to beg," she said. "I just need work. Anything." Still, no smile, no welcome. He stepped back, letting her pass. Inside, the house was quiet, thick with old secrets. She didn't ask questions. She didn't sit. She just stood there, knowing this was the place her fight would begin, even if it meant facing the very man she once promised never to see again. He didn't say much, just asked if she could still clean. She said yes. He pointed to the back room. She walked in, pulled her wrapper tighter, and got to work. The place smelled old, of dust, sweat, maybe something worse. She didn't care. She scrubbed the floor with bare hands, wiped the windows with a worn shirt she found, and carried out bags of old junk. No questions, just the job. Every second reminded her why she came. The loan. Her daughter. Her pride was still sore from the slap, but her hands didn't stop moving. By late afternoon, she heard his footsteps. He stood at the door, watched her for a while, then handed her a small white envelope. No words, no thanks. She opened it. 10,000 nairas. It wasn't even half of what she needed, but it felt like something. "Come back tomorrow," he said. She nodded and left. Outside, the sun hit her face. She didn't cry. Just walked, slowly, the money tucked deep in her bra. On the way home, she bought Gary and groundnuts. That night, she sat by the window, thinking of the balance left and the days ahead. Something had shifted. She wasn't just working. She was fighting back. The gate looked the same peeling paint, same crooked number plate. She stood there for a moment, staring like she was waiting for it to judge her. The 10,000 naira she earned was tucked inside her bag, wrapped in nylon like cash could bleed. But it wasn't enough. That morning, another message came. 310,000 nairas left. Default again, and we come knocking. She knocked twice. It was the older gatekeeper this time. He stared at her like she was a ghost. "You dey come back?" She gave a small nod. No words, just a smile that felt like it might crack her face. Inside smelled of bleach and something colder. Madam wasn't around, but he was, sitting in the same armchair watching TV with his phone half raised. He didn't say anything when she entered, just glanced once when she dropped her bag near the kitchen. That 1 second stretched long. Then she turned away and went straight to the sink. Plates were waiting, soaked in oily water. She scrubbed in silence, each scrape louder than the TV. He didn't move. Neither did she. But something shifted, quiet and firm. She wasn't the same girl who left. She came back different. She woke before sunrise. Her back sore from the stiff mattress in the boys' quarters. The air was damp, the bulb above flickering like it couldn't make up its mind. She washed her face from a plastic bowl, tied her scarf tightly, and slipped into the main house. The marble floor was cold under her feet. She cleaned the living room, wiped the glass center table, and then moved to the kitchen to start breakfast. OGI and akara. She made it soft, just the way Madam liked. He walked in without warning, shirtless, phone to his ear. He barely looked at her, just grunted something into the phone and poured himself a glass of juice. She kept her head down, but she could feel the tension hanging between them like steam. He didn't speak, neither did she. But just before he walked out, he paused by the door, turned slightly and said, "Don't be late again." It wasn't loud, but it pressed against her like a weight. She nodded once, not looking up. The kettle started to hiss. Madam returned that evening, her perfume always announcing her before the door even clicked. "You're back?" she asked, scanning her from head to toe like inventory. She nodded, standing straight, hands behind her. Madam didn't slap or shout this time. She only muttered, "Don't disappear again," then tossed her handbag on the chair like nothing ever happened. That was worse somehow, like she didn't matter enough to be missed or punished. Later that night, she sat on the kitchen stool, peeling yams slowly. Her phone buzzed in her wrapper, loan shark again. She didn't open it. Her eyes drifted to the hallway. He was laughing softly in the living room, talking on the phone, probably with one of his friends. Everything felt like it was moving around her while she stood still. But she didn't cry. Not tonight. She was back, yes. But something inside her had stayed behind. Something that wouldn't obey anymore. Days blended into each other. She cleaned, cooked, ironed, and kept her eyes low. He never mentioned the slap, never spoke more than 2 words to her. But he watched, sometimes from the hallway, sometimes through the mirror when she swept the living room. She felt it, the quiet staring. It didn't scare her like before, it just made her more careful. She started locking the door when she bathed, double-checking windows at night. Then one afternoon, Madam left for a wedding in Ibadan. The house went quiet again, just her and him. She was rinsing tomatoes at the sink when his voice came from behind. "You still owe them?" Her heart jumped. She didn't turn. "Yes," she said quietly. No shaking voice, no pleading, just the truth. He stood there a second longer, then walked away. She kept rinsing, but her fingers pressed the tomatoes a little too hard. That night, she hid the 10,000 nairas under the kitchen tiles. Not out of fear, but control. The next morning, he left a white envelope on the kitchen table. No note, no words, just walked out like it was nothing. She stared at it for minutes before touching it. Inside, 50,000 nairas. Crisp notes, neat. Her chest tightened. Was it guilt, control, or something else? She didn't say thank you. She didn't return it either. She just folded it back and placed it between her Bible pages. Later that evening, he sat on the balcony with a glass of something golden. She brought his dinner, dropped it on the table, and turned to go. "You're smarter than most of them," he said. She paused, not flattered, just tired. "I'm not like most of them," she replied, then walked away. Upstairs, in the small room where she slept, she stared at the ceiling. The money helped, yes, but she knew better now. Nothing was ever really free. Her phone buzzed late into the night, a strange number. She let it ring twice before picking. A slow voice spoke, low and mean. 260,000 nairas left. You think you can hide? Then the call ended. Her hands felt cold. She hadn't told anyone where she was. She checked the gate twice before going to bed, double-locked her door, and pushed the small stool under the handle. Sleep didn't come easily that night. By morning, she looked like she hadn't rested, but she moved fast, washing, sweeping, and ironing. Madam came back that afternoon, loud and impatient. "You again?" she hissed. She nodded without explaining. What was there to explain? She needed the money. The house needed cleaning. And the man? He barely spoke that day. But when he passed her in the hallway, he slowed just enough to glance at her. It wasn't anger. It wasn't care. It was something else, something watching, waiting. The rain started just after noon, hammering the roof like it had a score to settle. She was in the kitchen, peeling yam, when he walked in, barefoot, holding his phone. He didn't speak right away, just leaned on the doorframe and watched her, like he was deciding something. "Come," he finally said, not loud, not soft, just enough to make her pause. She wiped her hands and followed. The hallway felt longer than usual. In the living room he sat, the remote in his hand, the TV playing some football highlights he wasn't watching. "You still owe, right?" he asked without looking. She nodded. "I can help." She stood still, waiting for the rest. "But you'll help me too," he said, eyes now on her. The room was too quiet, the kind that made you hear your own heartbeat. She didn't answer, not yet. But she didn't walk away either. Later that night, when the rain had quieted to a whisper, she lay on the mattress in the back room, scrolling through her daughter's text from earlier. "Mom, the school says I can't sit for finals unless I clear my fees. Please, don't worry. I know you're trying." Her thumb hovered over the keyboard, then pulled back. No reply yet. Just a breath held tight in her chest, like a dam refusing to break. The old woman remembered his words like a warning echo. "I can help, but you'll help me too." It had haunted her since that day. Madam had gone to the market, leaving the house quiet and strange. She was mopping the floor near the stairs when she heard him behind her. His shadow stretched across the tiles. "Madam's not home," he said slowly, his voice too smooth. She turned, wary. He stepped closer, his eyes dark with something unspoken. "You know what I want." Her heart beat fast, but she didn't move. "Don't be foolish," he added, touching her arm lightly. "Isn't it small compared to your debt?" She pulled her arm away without a word. That silence seemed to provoke him. "So you think you're better than me," he spat. "Ungrateful thing. You think anyone will help a poor old woman like you? You'll die in that debt. Die a servant." The venom in his voice filled the room. She stood there, not flinching, Not crying, not speaking, just calm. Her silence made him even angrier. He stormed off, still shouting. She turned back to her mop and continued cleaning. But in her heart, she knew her time in that house had ended. She left that house before sunrise. No goodbyes, no need. Her spirit had already walked out the night before. With her small bag in hand, she returned to the busy roadside shop where she once worked, where the man had once slipped her 10,000 without question. He welcomed her back with a smile and no words. She resumed like nothing had happened. That evening, walking home alone, she saw something strange near a quiet bend in the road. A thick envelope, heavy, bulging. She looked around, not a soul in sight. She waited, heart pounding, scanning the path, but no one came. Carefully, she picked it up. Inside was more than just money. Bundles of cash she had never held before, and a sleek, new smartphone that gleamed like it didn't belong in the dust. Her hands shook. She sat on a stone by the roadside, staring at the treasure. Her first thought was fear. Who could have left something this big? What if someone came back for it? But after waiting long enough and still seeing no one, she wrapped it back in the envelope and quietly took it home. Even as she closed her door behind her, she wasn't sure if she had done the right thing or walked into something strange. The next morning, while she was washing clothes behind her house, the strange phone began to ring. The screen lit up with a number she didn't know. Nervously, she answered. A calm male voice asked, "Did you by any chance see any money?" Her hands froze. She hesitated, then spoke honestly. "Yes, I found an envelope yesterday." There was a pause. Then the voice said, "And the phone?" She confirmed she had it too. He didn't shout, didn't threaten. Instead, he asked for her address. Without hiding, she gave it. Hours later, a black SUV pulled up near her house. Two men stepped out, well-dressed and polite. They handed her a sealed brown envelope and smiled. "We were watching," one of them said. It was a test. Most people would have lied. She stood stunned as they told her it was planted on purpose. "You've proved something rare," the other added. "You're honest even when no one's looking." Before they left, they promised she'd hear from them again. She stood by her door, clutching the new envelope, heart beating fast. For the first time in a long while, it wasn't out of fear, but hope. Days later, she got a call again. This time, it was an invitation. A foundation run by the men had decided to reward her. At their office, they handed her money, enough to clear every kobo of her debt, enough to pay her daughter's school fees in full. They even gave her a grant to open a shop of her own. She wept there in front of everyone, thanking them, thanking God. The shop opened 2 weeks late, painted fresh, filled with goods, and carrying her name above the entrance. She now walks with pride through her street. Neighbors greet her differently. No more shame, no more debt. Her daughter is back in school, and food is always on their table. She doesn't work for anyone anymore. She owns something, something built not just on luck, but on truth. Sometimes, your truth is the key that opens unexpected doors. This woman didn't have much, but she had integrity. And when the world tested her, she didn't fail. In a time when many would lie for survival, she chose honesty, and it changed her life forever. Let her story remind you. Even in silence, someone may be watching. Do good. Be true. It pays. What did you learn? That resilience isn't loud. That dignity can survive even in broken places. That even when the world turns cold, one act of kindness or courage can still light a way forward. Stories like this aren't just fiction. They mirror real struggles, silent battles, and the quiet strength many carry every day. If this story touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that reflect real lives and silent strength. Let's keep these voices heard and these truths alive.